The year is 1937. Aviation is still in its golden age, a time when flying across the ocean feels like science fiction brought to life. And at the center of it all is a woman who has already become a global icon, Amelia Earhart. She wasn't just another pilot. Earhart was a record breaker, a best-selling author, and a symbol of independence in an era when women were expected to stay grounded, literally and figuratively.
Curious about how the world really works? Not the myths, not the shortcuts, the real science behind everything we see and experience. On this channel, we explore mind-bending physics, unravel the secrets of the universe, and uncover the hidden patterns that shape our reality. If that excites you, subscribe for weekly deep dives into science and discovery. Hit like and share with friends. Your curiosity drives our next adventure. Leave a comment and let us know what puzzles we should solve together.
She was the first woman to fly solo across the Atlantic. She had set altitude records, speed records, and distance records, and she wasn't done yet. Her next mission was the boldest of all, to fly all the way around the world, nearly 29,000 miles, crossing oceans, deserts, and uncharted skies, a feat no woman had ever attempted and only a handful of men had achieved. To the public, this was an adventure. To Amelia, it was destiny. The final flight begins. On May 20th, 1937, Amelia Earhart and her navigator, Fred Noonan, set out from Oakland, California in a specially modified twin-engine Lockheed Electra 10E. The plan was ambitious, a 29,000-mile circumnavigation of the globe, flying close to the equator. Their path would take them across South America, Africa, India, Southeast Asia, and finally the vast Pacific Ocean. For weeks, everything went according to plan. By late June, they had already covered more than 22,000 miles. The Electra touched down in Lae, Papua New Guinea, their second-to-last stop. From here, just two legs remained, a 2,556-mile stretch across open ocean to a tiny island called Howland, and then the final jump back to the United States. It was here, on that long, uncertain flight over the Pacific, that Amelia Earhart would disappear forever. The fateful flight to Howland Island. At midnight, July 2nd, 1937, Amelia Earhart and her navigator, Fred Noonan, set out from Lae, Papua New Guinea. Their destination, Howland Island, was nothing more than a speck of land in the middle of the Pacific, about 2 miles long, half a mile wide. Finding it was like searching for a needle in a haystack. Navigation had to be perfect. But from the very beginning, things started to go wrong. Headwinds were stronger than expected, slowing their progress and burning more fuel than planned. Their radio communication equipment was unreliable, and Fred Noonan, while an experienced navigator, was working with tools that depended on clear skies and visible stars. Unfortunately, the Pacific that morning was covered in clouds. As the hours went by, the U.S. Coast Guard ship Itasca, stationed near Howland Island, picked up faint messages from Earhart. Each one grew more urgent. She was running low on gas. She couldn't see the island, and the Electra had no way of homing in on the Itasca's radio signals. Finally, at 8:43 a.m., her last transmission crackled through the airwaves. "We must be on you, but cannot see you. Gas is running low." After that, silence. Amelia Earhart and Fred Noonan were never heard from again. The immediate search and shockwave. Within minutes of her final transmission, the Coast Guard vessel Itasca scrambled to respond. Smoke signals were set off, radio calls blasted across frequencies, but there was no sign of Earhart's Electra. Then came the largest air and sea search in history up to that point. For over 2 weeks, 66 aircraft and 9 naval ships scoured more than 250,000 square miles of ocean. The U.S. Navy's aircraft carrier USS Lexington and battleship USS Colorado joined the hunt. Every possible stretch of sea and island was checked. But no wreckage, no oil slick, no debris was ever found. It was as if the plane had vanished into thin air. The world was stunned. Amelia Earhart wasn't just a pilot. She was a global celebrity. Newspapers from New York to London to Tokyo ran headlines of her disappearance. To millions of people, she symbolized progress, courage, and freedom. Now, she was gone. Officially, after weeks of searching, the U.S. government declared Amelia Earhart lost at sea. But almost immediately, theories began to spread. And over the decades, those theories have only grown more elaborate. Theories of what happened. When no trace of Amelia Earhart's plane was found, the mystery deepened. And with mystery comes speculation. Over the years, countless theories have tried to answer the question, what actually happened to Amelia Earhart and Fred Noonan? The official explanation, the one supported by most historians, is called the crash and sink theory. According to this view, Earhart simply ran out of fuel while searching for Howland Island. With the Pacific stretching endlessly in every direction, the Electra would have only minutes of flight left before ditching into the sea. The aircraft likely broke apart on impact and sank quickly, leaving no visible debris. Given the vastness and depth of the Pacific, it's entirely possible that the wreckage lies thousands of feet below the surface, out of reach even today. But alternate theories soon emerged. One of the most persistent is the Gardner Island theory. Just southeast of Howland Island lies a small coral atoll known then as Gardner Island, today called Nikumaroro. In 1940, British colonial officers exploring the island discovered human bones, along with the remains of a campfire, a woman's shoe, and pieces of an aircraft. While the bones were lost decades ago, modern forensic analysis of the records suggested they could have belonged to a tall woman of European ancestry, possibly Earhart. Advocates of this theory believe she and Noonan survived the crash landing on Nikumaroro, only to perish as castaways, unseen by the searchers who passed by. Then there are the conspiracy theories. Some claim Earhart was captured by the Japanese after landing in the Marshall Islands, accused of being a spy during the tense years before World War II. Others believe she assumed a new identity and lived out her life in secret. Still others suggest that parts of the wreckage have already been found and quietly hidden away. Each of these theories carries fragments of evidence, but none are definitive. No wreckage, no remains, no conclusive proof has ever surfaced. And that is what makes the Earhart mystery so enduring. Unlike other aviation accidents, there is no final chapter, only possibilities.
The crash and sink theory. Of all the explanations, the crash and sink theory remains the most convincing to experts. And when you examine the evidence closely, it makes sense. First, there's the issue of navigation. Fred Noonan was highly skilled, but his methods relied heavily on celestial navigation, tracking the sun and stars to pinpoint position. On July 2nd, the skies over the Pacific were clouded, making this almost impossible. Without accurate star readings, even the slightest error could throw them hundreds of miles off course. Second, there was radio failure. Earhart and the Coast Guard ship Itasca never managed to establish two-way communication. The Electra's receiver likely wasn't tuned correctly, meaning Amelia could send messages but not hear the responses. So while she desperately called out, she never knew that Itasca was replying, guiding her toward safety. Third, there was fuel consumption. The headwinds she encountered were stronger than forecasted, slowing her progress and burning more gasoline than planned. By the time she reached the vicinity of Howland Island, her fuel reserves were dangerously low. The final radio message at 8:43 a.m., "We must be on you but cannot see you. Gas is running low," was essentially a last cry for help. Without sight of the island, without functioning radio guidance, and with fuel nearly gone, the Electra had only one fate left: a forced ditching into the Pacific. Modern analysis supports this. Oceanographers studying drift patterns and ocean depths believe the Electra likely went down near Howland, sinking quickly into waters over 18,000 feet deep. At such depths, even modern search technology struggles. Countless expeditions have scoured the seafloor with sonar and submersibles, but the Pacific is vast, and wreckage can easily be buried under silt. So while no physical proof has been recovered, the simplest explanation remains the most likely. Amelia Earhart's plane simply ran out of fuel, crashed into the ocean, and vanished beneath the waves. The Gardner Island castaway theory. While the crash and sink theory is the official explanation, another possibility refuses to fade away: the Gardner Island theory. Just southeast of Howland Island lies a remote coral atoll known at the time as Gardner Island, today called Nikumaroro. Some researchers believe that when Earhart couldn't locate Howland, she may have followed her navigation lines southeast, directly toward Nikumaroro. In 1940, a British colonial officer named Gerald Gallagher reported a disturbing discovery on the island: partial human remains, a woman's shoe, and what appeared to be the remnants of a camp. Nearby were improvised tools made from aircraft aluminum, suggesting that a plane had once been there. The bones were sent to Fiji for analysis, but later misplaced, leaving only written records. Decades later, modern forensic researchers studied those records and concluded that the bones may have belonged to a tall Caucasian female, possibly matching Earhart's description. Over the years, expeditions by groups like the International Group for Historic Aircraft Recovery, or TIGAR, have uncovered additional clues on Nikumaroro. These include fragments of glass believed to come from aircraft windows, a piece of aluminum skin matching the construction of the Lockheed Electra, and even a sextant box, similar to the kind Fred Noonan might have used. Critics argue that none of this evidence is conclusive. It could have come from other sources, and the Pacific has seen many shipwrecks. Still, the tantalizing possibility remains that Earhart and Noonan managed to land on Nikumaroro, survived for days or even weeks, but ultimately perished as castaways on a deserted island. If true, Amelia Earhart's final days weren't lost in the vast ocean, but lived out in isolation on a remote shore, so close to rescue, yet unseen. The conspiracy theories. For many people, the idea that Amelia Earhart simply crashed into the ocean or landed on a deserted island isn't enough. Over the decades, conspiracy theories have flourished, painting her disappearance as part of a larger secret. One of the most famous is the Japanese capture theory. According to this idea, Earhart and Noonan didn't crash near Howland at all. Instead, they veered hundreds of miles northwest and landed in the Marshall Islands, which were under Japanese control at the time. Proponents argue that the Japanese military took them prisoner, possibly suspecting them of espionage, as tensions between Japan and the US were already rising before World War II. Some even claim eyewitnesses saw a woman and a man fitting their descriptions in Japanese custody. Another conspiracy, known as the spy theory, suggests that Earhart's world flight wasn't just for fame, but also a covert mission for the US government. According to this story, she was using her flight to gather intelligence on Japanese military activity in the Pacific. When the mission went wrong, the US supposedly covered it up. Then there's the new identity theory. In this version, Earhart survived, but chose or was forced to disappear. Some even claim she returned to the US under an assumed name, living out her days in quiet anonymity. One woman in New Jersey, Irene Bolam, was famously accused of being Amelia Earhart in disguise, a claim she strongly denied until her death. Of course, historians and aviation experts find little solid evidence to support these conspiracies. Most rely on rumors, misidentified photographs, or vague eyewitness accounts decades after the fact. Still, they capture the public imagination because they keep the legend alive. After all, the idea that Amelia Earhart, a woman who defied the limits of her time, might have lived on in secret or been part of an international intrigue adds a dramatic twist to an already mysterious story. But whether you believe the official explanation, the castaway theory, or the conspiracies, one truth remains. Amelia Earhart's disappearance left a mark far larger than the mystery itself.
The legacy of Amelia Earhart. Even without a confirmed ending, Amelia Earhart's story continues to inspire generations. She was more than a pilot. She was a symbol of courage, innovation, and breaking boundaries. Her achievements opened doors for women in aviation and other fields. By becoming the first woman to fly solo across the Atlantic, she shattered the belief that long-distance flight was an exclusively male domain. She proved that determination, skill, and intelligence could overcome societal barriers. Her disappearance also transformed aviation safety and technology. After 1937, navigation methods and radio communication systems were reassessed and improved to prevent similar tragedies. Lessons learned from her flight led to better emergency protocols, more reliable radio direction finding, and safer flight planning for long-distance journeys. In popular culture, Earhart's name is synonymous with adventure and bravery. Books, documentaries, and movies have chronicled her life, keeping her story alive for over 80 years. From schools to airports, her name is a reminder that curiosity and perseverance are worth pursuing, even in the face of great risk. But perhaps her most important legacy is inspiration. Earhart's life reminds us that sometimes the journey itself, filled with daring, mistakes, and learning, is more important than the destination. Young pilots, explorers, and innovators still look to her as a model of courage. They see in her the message, "Don't fear failure, plan carefully, learn constantly, and push the limits of what's possible." Her legacy also reminds us of the human cost of exploration. Risk is inherent, and even the most prepared can face disaster. Yet it is precisely because of these risks that her story resonates. Amelia Earhart challenges us to embrace the unknown, seek knowledge, and take responsibility for our decisions, just as she did in the skies above the Pacific. Amelia Earhart's disappearance remains one of history's most enduring mysteries. While we may never know exactly what happened over the Pacific that July morning in 1937, the story itself teaches us profound lessons about courage, preparation, and human curiosity. Her final flight reminds us that even the most talented and determined individuals face the limits of technology and nature. A small detail, a malfunctioning antenna, a misunderstood radio frequency, or a miscalculated wind can change the course of history. Yet it is in her determination, resourcefulness, and daring spirit that we find inspiration. Earhart's life was defined by action and ambition. She didn't wait for the world to accept her. She demanded it through her accomplishments. Her disappearance amplified her legacy, transforming her into a symbol not only of aviation, but of daring to challenge the impossible. Perhaps the most important lesson from her story is the interplay of knowledge and responsibility. She had skill and courage, but limitations in understanding complex technology, combined with communication failures, shaped her fate. Similarly, those attempting extraordinary feats today, whether in aviation, science, or exploration,
must balance bravery with meticulous preparation, awareness, and collaboration. Her story also underscores the power of human imagination. From the crash and sink hypothesis to theories of castaway survival and even espionage conspiracies, her disappearance sparks curiosity, research, and debate. The search for Amelia Earhart isn't just about uncovering remains. It's about exploring human potential, the boundaries of adventure, and the persistent drive to solve mysteries. In the end, Amelia Earhart's true legacy lies not in where she disappeared, but in the life she lived. She reminds us to dream boldly, act decisively, and embrace both risk and uncertainty with grace. Every aspiring pilot, explorer, or innovator carries a piece of her spirit, a reminder that courage, knowledge, and responsibility together can take us further than we ever imagined. And so, the skies above the Pacific remain silent witnesses to her journey. But the story of Amelia Earhart continues to soar, inspiring generations to look beyond the horizon, ask the hard questions, and never stop reaching for the unknown.